Oh, we're both on. I thought must have misunderstood. Oops.
Where is everybody?
We go to the chitas of today. We're holding in the portion of Akev. We're holding the fourth. Today is Wednesday. We're holding the fourth reading in the portion of Akev. Chapter 10, verse number 1. Beisahi Amar Hashem Elai. At that time, the Abish told to me, cut out to yourself two stone, two luchis, like you did the first time. Laya harder and go up to me, go up to the mountain. The mountain, and make for yourself a wooden ark. Now she says at the end of the 40 days, he consented to my request. And the Abish said to me, "Who out yourself 2 tablets, and afterwards make yourself an ark." However, I made the ark first. For otherwise, when I would come with the tablets in my hand, where would I put them? This is not the ark made by Betzalel, for they did not work on the tabernacle until after Yom Kippur. Right, so the story of the tabernacle was after Yom Kippur. The tablets were already broken. So he came. David now he came down with a second tablets. This is now the base. The Mishkan is not built yet, so there's no ark. So this is a different ark that Moshe Rabbeinu made. For only when Moshe descended the mountain did he instructed them to regard the construction of the Beis Hamikdash. And Betzalel made the tabernacles first, followed by the ark and the other furnishings. Thus, this ark must have been a different one. And this is the ark, Rashi says, this is the ark that went out with them in war. We know that an ark went out with them to war. And in them were the broken tablets. So this was the ark that went out with them. However, the one that made Betzalel did not go out to war; it stayed in the Mishkan, except once in the time of Eli, for which they were punished, and it was captured by the enemy. That was one of the sins of Eli. Eli decided to take that ark with them to war, and that the ark was not allowed to leave the Mishkan. I wrote down and inscribed on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets. Ashishibaiti, which I broke. The Samti Ba'ar, and I put it into the ark. And he inscribed under the tablets. The Eibishter inscribed on the tablets, like he did in the first tablets. As I said, as Hadvarim, the 10 Commandments, Ashadibar Hashem Aleichem, which God spoke to you, Bahar in the mountain, Miteicha from the fire, Vayim Haka, Vayim Hakol, the day that we all gathered, Vayitim Hashem Elai, and God gave it to me. Verse number 5, and I turned, I came down the mountain. And I put the luchas into the ark. Asher Asishi, which I made. And it was there as God commanded. This is the whole situation. Where was the broken and the whole luchas, the whole Gemara. But over here we see that they were in the beginning surely put together in this ark. And then the Jewish people journeyed from the wells of Bnei Yakan to Meseira. Sham Meis Aaron, over there Aaron died. Vayikaver Sham, and he was buried. Vayechan Elazar Bnei Tachtav, and Eliezer, his son, became the Kohen Gadol. So this pasuk doesn't fit over here, and as Rashi is going to say right away, Ma'in Zalakan. What's going on? We went from Kabbalah Torah to 40 years later. This is 40. Aaron HaKohen died 40 years later. So what does it do over here? Furthermore, did it indeed journey the well Bnei Yaakov to Masada? Surely it was from Masada that they came to Bnei Yaakov. As it says, they journeyed from Masada. They camped in Bnei Yaakov. Something's wrong over here. Another difficulty, there the Aaron died, but Aaron died at Mount Har. Go and count, you'll find that there's 8 stations from Masada to Har. So what's the pasuk over here talking about? What's the meaning of this pasuk? Rather, we must say this too is a part of Moshe Rabbeinu's rebuke. It's part of his drasha. It's not actually what happened. This too you did. When Aaron died at Mount Har at the end of the 40 years, and the clouds of glory departed, you were afraid because of the war of the kings of Arad, and you appointed a new leader to return back to Egypt. He's just going back to the story. He's just giving them another example of what they did. And even though it happened 40 years later, he's just giving them another reality check. And there's the same concept. There's the Levites fought with you and killed some of you while you killed some of them until they had to return along the route to reach, and you had to bring you back. From there, you return to Hagidgad, which is identical to Har Hagidgad, and for Har Hagidgad to your Tvasa. While at Masada, you conducted a heavy mourning over Aaron's death that caused you all this loss. And it seems to you that he died there. So that's what he means. But actually, he died in a different place, but you felt that it died there, all the tragedies that happened because of that. Moshe Rabbeinu puts together his rebuke to mention the breaking of the tablets, which happened 40 years before, indicating that the death of a righteous is grievous by God as the breaking of the tablets. The Aaron HaKohen's death brought about such tzaddis, the Yidden, like the breaking of the tablets brought about tzaddis on the Jewish people. As the day of the tablets are broken, and inform us that which it says, let us anoint a leader in order to separate themselves from God, was as severe to him as the day he made the golden calf. And that's what the connection, that's how you to connect all these psukim, all these verses together. Verse number 7, Misham Nasa had good guide. From there they journeyed to good guide. When I good guide to Yitvasa, from good guide to Yitvasa, Eretz Nachle Mayim, a land of streams of water. Now she said, and at Masada, he made a great mourning for the death of Aaron, which was the cause of this retreat. And it seemed as too he died there. Moshe puts together reproof with the breaking of the tablets to indicate the death of the righteous, a grievous one, blessed be as the day the tablets are broken. This guy meant. Previous Rashi. Verse number 8. At that time, God separated the tribe of Levi. Hashem to carry the covenant of God. Hashem to stand before God. The Shorsei to service him. To bless in his name. Ad hayom hazeh, until this day. Now she says this is going back, time of the golden calf. This refers to the original subject. On the first day after you left Egypt, you made a mistake with the golden calf, but the Levites did not make a mistake, and God separated them for you. That's what happened. So the Abish is separate at that time, and when time of the golden calf, the Abish should change because it was supposed to be the firstborn, the Bechor. But then the Eibishter made the tribe of Levi. This is the connection account to Bnei Yaakov, indicating that there too the Levites did not make a mistake, and they remained faithful. Bnei Yaakov, where the Jewish people complained they want to go back to Mitzrayim. Again, the tribe of Levi always stayed focused. Lasis Aaron, Halavim, the Levites. La Melefnei Hashem, to serve before God. I'm talking about the priests, referring to when they raised their hands, recited priestly blessing. So here, God at that time decided that it's time to change from the firstborn to the tribe of Levi, and that the tribe of Levi would from then would be the Leviim and would be the Kehanim. Verse number 9. Therefore, the tribe of Levi don't have a part in Eretz Yisrael. Hashem unachlase. God is his inheritance. As God spoken to him. Rashi says, since they were separated from the altar service, for the altar service, and are thus not available to plow and sow, that's not their avodah. The avodah in life is to serve God and not to work the land. Hashem and Achlase, they receive a ready, prepared portion of the king's house, and that's why they have Truma and Maises. Verse number 10, we're going back to the story. And I stood in the mountain another 40 days. And God listened to me. And God did not seek to destroy you. Rashi says to receive the latter tablets, this is the last 40 days. Since we are not specified above how much time he spent in the last time, he spent what he spent in the second time. But here he says how many he spent it. So ultimately, he stayed on the mountain 40 days for 120 days. So he had one coffee break in between each 40 days. But he pushed it. If you think about it, the Moshe Rabbeinu fasted for 120 days. Kayom and Hashanim, the 40 days of the first tablets. She said this already before. Kayom and Hashanim, the first tablets. Just as they spent with God's favor, so were the last 40 days in God's favor. In the middle 40 days, from the 7th day of Tammuz till the 29th day of Av, when I stood before to pray for you, it was in God's anger. Verse number 11. Yem Hashem Elaykum lech lemasa lefnei. Okay, go out. Let's keep on the journey. Let's keep on trucking. Let's keep on journeying together. Vayavoyu v'yirshus, they'll come and they'll inherit the land. Asher nishba lavesam, which I promised their forefathers, laseis lahem, to give to them. She says, even though you turned away from following him and you made a mistake in the golden calf, God said to me, let's keep on going. Go and lead the people. You're right. I'm going to forgive the Jews, and let's continue the journey together. And that completes Chumash for today. We start a new letter, 6th letter of the Alter Rebbe, the Igeres HaKodesh, in the part of Tanya of the holy letters of the Alter Rebbe. Okay, the verse says, Zeireya tzedakah, secher emes, it's a pasuk in Mishlei, Proverbs. He who sows tzedakah has a reward of truth. What does that mean? Pirush. The meaning is that the attribute of truth is the God-given reward for sowing tzedakah. So the term "this" means, in general, use it for forestall an alternative interpretation. Here, too, by this term, the Alter Rebbe stresses that we have to understand the Hebrew word for sachar, which means reward, schar, rather than it's being understood to mean closing off or restraining water or whatever in order to concentrate it. The latter interpretation is that of Rashi. So the Alter Rebbe, how do you say this word? That's really the question. How do you say this word? No, the vowel. Where do you put the vowel? Put the vowel on the left side. You put the vowel on the right side. A parallel term is vayisachru, and the well springs of deep were sealed. So there's two ways of saying what the meaning of the word. Furthermore, even the Targum and other commentaries who read the word as secher means a payment, schar, of a reward, can be understood to mean that an individual who sowed charity received true reward, meaning an everlasting reward, rather than a reward consists of truth. Alter Rebbe therefore specifically this means pirush, that the reward granted from above for sowing tzedakah is the attribute of truth. That's the Alter Rebbe's pirush. Is the attribute of truth. And here he's going to explain what he means. Ksiv, it's written, Titin emes leYaakov. You give truth to Yaakov. Titin emes leYaakov, which would appear to indicate, once again, that the attribute of truth is granted from above. According to commentaries of Rashi and Targum, however, this verse does not describe a state of affairs. Rather, it's a petition that God give truth. Titin emes leYaakov. Give truth to Yaakov. That he fulfills for Jacob's children the truthful promise that he made to Yaakov. Hence, this verse does not prove that the attribute of truth is a gift granted from above. So, the Alter Rebbe is learning the pasuk different. Alter Rebbe therefore goes to specify that this verse is to be understood in the same light as the verse quoted above. That the emes is dafke given to Yaakov. And here the prophet of Micha speaks of the praise of the Holy One, blessed be He. He's written to the Holy Nevaya, Commercial Kosovo, Kodesh is written in Isaiah, meaning that rather than petition God, this verse extols him for fulfilling his promise, for granting the attribute of truth to Yaakov. Pirush, what does it mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, according to the Zohar, the meaning is HaKadosh Baruch Hu had neisim midas emes Yaakov. That the Holy One, blessed be, who gives the attribute of truth to Yaakov. But Tzara Lahavin, according to this Pirush, according to this explanation, we have to understand v'chi ein emes b'Yaakov chas v'shalom. Is Yaakov? There's no truth. Yaakov doesn't have truth. Acha Kadosh Baruch Hu yitin leimel maila. Until the Eibishter gives him from above. Yaakov, why couldn't Yaakov be truthful without Titin emes Yaakov? Without God giving him truth. According to the Kabbalah, Yaakov is midas emes. So he's midas emes on his own. So why does he need to have God giving midas emes? He is midas emes. The truth is, Yaakov is not midas emes. He's midas arachmim. He's midas Avram is chesed, Yitzchak is gevura, and Yaakov is midas arachmanis, rachamim. That the midas of Yaakov, the real attribute of Yaakov is midas arachmanis, is the attribute of mercy. Avram emphasizes the concept of chesed, the attribute of kindness. Yitzchak is gevura, the attribute of severity. The predominant attribute of Yaakov is tiferes, or rachamim, compassion. The inner aspect of the soul's divine service, when motivated by chesed, is the love of God. The inner attribute of the soul's divine service, when motivated by gevura, is the awe of God. So too, the divine service, when motivated by compassion, has its distinct inner aspect. And v'avodas Hashem, what is the service of Yaakov? Is midas harachmanis, is to serve God through compassion. And derives from the arousal of man's heart. Man opens his heart. Rachamim rabim, with a profound compassion. That the person has great deep, which we learned in Tanya also, that a person creates a great deep empathy and rachmanis on his neshama. Which is so distant from God, that a person realizes how special he is. He's so distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, Poshet has rachmanis on his neshama, that's a chelik elakam, a mal mamish, that's a part of God and came from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and now it's stuck with him. That is walking in the darkness to the vanities of the world. The Eibishter Pasha took this in the Shama. That's at the highest level of spirituality in the upper world, and it's walking in Boca. And this is where my neshama is. This is where my neshama is stuck. It's stuck in Boca Raton. So when man finds himself straying for alone in the state of spiritual darkness, he can thus awaken within him a feeling of compassion upon his soul. for the soul spark within him that he himself has banished from the light of the Chamanas by neshama. That's why I thank the Eibush every day. The neshama comes back. The neshama goes lamaila at night. Now it comes back to walk the streets of Boca, and it's now in this darkness of this world, and it's trying to do something in this hevel avolim, in this choshech hevel olam, in the darkness and the vanity of the world. So I have to awaken up myself, within myself, rachmanis, rachamim, mercy. That's why you understand the whole concept of Yaakov Avinu going down to Mitzrayim. That he didn't want to go to Mitzrayim. He wanted to go because Yaakov is rachmanis. He pushed it out rachmanis on his neshama and the neshamas of his whole family. They're going to have to go down to Mitzrayim, and he understood what that's going to be. He comprehended that's going to be Golus. It's going to be Golus Mitzrayim. And it's going to bring about certain ramifications to Yidden, to Klal Yisrael. And you should realize that's the whole concept of Yaakov Avinu realizing from Rachel right away that he cried. That's what I have to remember. We learned in Tanya that when he cried and he kissed her and he cried because he realized that this is the future of Am Yisrael, that they're going to have to be in darkness. And they're going to have to deal with darkness, and they're going to have to deal with the lowest levels of the world, and that's the greatest. That's why he cried, the greatest rachamim, to awaken up rachamim rabim on his neshama, not only on his neshama of Klal Yisrael, that they would be able to withstand this darkness, and they would have rachmanis on the neshamas, that the neshamas have to deal with this kind of darkness of the world, and that is. It's not and again, that's we sometimes fall to rachamim, the tzaris. The rachamim rabim is not on the pain of what's happening. The rachamim rabim is that our neshama is stuck in the situation, and once we get our neshama out of the situation, maybe everything else will change. But that's the rachamim, the arousal, the compassion itself derives, and it's proportioned of man's understanding, deep. And beat mizbanis, deep contemplation, vadas, and the knowledge, b'gdulas Hashem, and the greatness of God. So God is so great, and God is so unbelievable, and it's so part of me. And now it's in this gullus, the greatness of Hakadosh Baruch Hu is stuck in this darkness. Can you imagine the Eibishter, my neshama? Even the upper worlds, even the upper worlds, the Maila case. I want to go to the highest world you want to go to. Go to the world of Atzilus. But it's nothing. Because everything that these upper worlds, if you learn Chassidus, and you learn Kabbalah, and you learn Zayar, and everything in the Arizal, they'll tell you clearly that even the upper worlds of Atzilus, which we talk about as it's all only a ray of God. It's only the ray of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the ray of it's his shine. It all comes from the letters of God. As the Gemara says, Biyud Nivra Olam Haba. The whole upper world, Gan Eden, is all created from the letter Yud. What's the letter Yud? The smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. It's a dot. The whole spiritual worlds. You think about it. You think, wow, the spiritual worlds are greater than this physical world. And the whole spiritual worlds, whole Olam Haba, all the four worlds we talk about, all are created from the letter Yud. They're all created, so that shows you that how far in distance this world, these spiritual worlds, are to God. They're only related for a dot. The spiritual world, of all which is included, term the world to come, are thus all created by a means of a single letter Yud in the divine name. So it's not even created; it's created from a letter. And not only from a letter, it's created from a small letter Yud. So that's how the Gemara itself, this is expression of the Gemara, and itself is in Kabbalah. You learn Chassidus, you learn Kabbalah, what that means. That means and from this little ray and radiance of God, which is an extension of the life energy that flows from God's blessed name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the letter Yud, that animates the higher and the lower being, higher and lower beings, all from a letter, all from one little letter. So self-understood, this is the distinction and the difference between the respect of the higher and the lower beings. The Gemara says that the upper worlds are created with the letter Yud. The lower worlds are created with the letter Hey. That this world, the Gemara says, the upper worlds, Elam Haba, which means all the worlds, all the four worlds, what Kabbalah says. Atzilus, Bri, Yitzira, and Asiya, all created with the letter Yud. This world was created with the letter Hey. Created with the letter Hey, and the upper worlds are created, the higher worlds are created with the letter Yud. As explained in the previous letter, this lowly corporal world receives its vitality only from the matter or a body of the letter of the supernal speech, in which turn derives from the letter Hey of the divine name. The higher worlds, however, receive the vitality from the form or soul of the letter, and this derives from the level of Chachma, which is represented in letter Yud, the divine name. However, these different modes in which the life-giving influence of the divine name is diffused to the upper and the lower worlds, respectively relate only to the ray and the radiance of God's name. They don't relate to the God's essence, because God's essence to His name is fire, is a great divide, great separation. Moreover, any name is a mere radiance of the essence of the entity named. A person's name, for example, is not his essence. It merely means relating to another person. So I might know me as Zalman Bucket. In the same way, the divine name is only a radiance of the essence of the divine. Until now, the Alter Rebbe has spoken in general terms of the difference between the higher and higher and lower worlds. So to the variety of the details of each world, right? Is all determined by the differences, the combination of letters through which they were created. And so too the distinction between the temporal dimensions of past, present, and future. And all the variety of events throughout the changing times. They're all determined by the difference, a combination of letters. These combination of letters are the conduit to which the life-giving force proceeds from the attribute of God, blessed be He. So they all come down in different varieties, in different situations, all connected to the letters of God's name. The truth is, we say the same thing about a human being. Your name is your real name is given to you by God, and it's given to you. Your parents had Ruach HaKodesh, because that's the way that's the DNA of who you are. If you know how to work it out, you know why your name is that way, and what is the purpose, and what is the agenda. Commissioners Bible Kutia Morim Chelik Beis Perigid Aleph as brought down in Tanya in chapter 11. So all the above mentioned difference to be found only in the flow of the vitality which name emanates from God's attributes, and which then descend to the letters of the created speech. But when we go to the essence of God, Ksiv, that's when the pasuk says, "Ani Hashem lo shanisi." I am a God, I don't change. Now, there's a difference between Malo Kalamim and Save of Kalamim, which you learned many times. The way that God fills the world and the way God is above the world. And when you talk about God, the way He's above the world, neither in the term of the change and progression from apparent levels. There's no levels by God. There's no upper and lower. Because if you understand this, God, just like God is present in the upper worlds, so too He's in the lowest worlds. There's no difference. Ani Hashem lo shanisi. I am God. I don't change. There's no change in me anywhere. Nothing has an effect on me. So equal to Him, for there's no thought that can comprehend Him at all, even in the most highest worlds. So just like we don't comprehend God, so too in the world of Atzilus doesn't comprehend God. They can comprehend in the attributes of God's selfness at a much greater level. But in God, they all call, as they say in Adam, Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. Even the angels of the world of Atzilus say God is separate, separate, separate. He's beyond any aspect of that world. You can learn all this in chapter 51 of Tanya. The higher and the lower worlds differ only in relation to the stream of life force energy and the revelation of God in that world. The way God comes into letters, into forms, into dimensions, etc. That is a big difference in the world of Atzilus in comparison to the world of Bria, in comparison to the world of this world itself. Flows forth, this vitality is a mere, but you got to really, it's only revealed the higher worlds and the lower worlds. Bein bechina shin izman, in the terms of change of time, that's why there's in the upper worlds there's no time per se. There is a concept of time, but there's no time in comparison to this world. Because just as He is alone, Yachid and Miyuchid, He's one and unique. Just like God is one and unique before the creation, so too God is one and unique if the creation. Creation doesn't change God. But how can God absolute unity remain unaltered despite the event of a whole created universe? Because by God everything is nothing. If the world was something, you can't say something is to somebody and it doesn't change. If something is something to somebody, that means that there's something. If it's here, it's something. If it's not there, he's missing that something. And that's why Chassidus demands that everything is nothing. To the Eivish, everything is nothing. You can't say it's something. Because if it's something, then there's a something. And before there was there, he had it. And after, if he didn't have it, then that something is missing. So that's why Chassidus says, Mishum shakol ka'ayim ve'efes mamish. As it's something. Because the Eivish made it as something. As it's something, to the Eibush, it's nothing. To God, it's nothing. It's like it's not there. Ka'ayin ve'efes mamish. Get those words. Ka'ayin ve'efes mamish legabe muhusi v'atzmosei. This is because everything is absolutely as nothing and naught in relationship to God's essence. Everything is nothing. Not because it's nothing, because God is infinite and everything is finite. Even the world of Atzilus is finite. So everything is nothing. Zilch. The Alter Rebbe gave this analogy before. The analogy of a person. You have to look at it. If I want to give you a physical, because it's very hard for us to understand something to nothing. How do a person understand that? So we give you an analogy. It's only an analogy. As you take one word in your lifetime, take one word to all your words you've spoken. What is that? Are you going to say that as something? I said one word. I'm speaking of billions of words. What is that one word? Nothing. It's nothing. So if you understand that concept within yourself, or take the thought of your, Alter Rebbe gave this analogy before. Take the even thought, which is more spiritual than your word. But what's your thought to your soul? It's garnished. What is a thought to your essence of your soul? Garnished. It's garnished. Not, it has no value. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's like nothing. So meaning, this is true not only in the letters of speech, but also in thought. Even though the soul garments of thought are more abstract and subtle than speech, and thus closer to the soul, but so even though, as we learned, that the thought is closer to the soul, but what's the thought to the soul? Garnished. I understand that speech is nothing to the soul. What is even thought is nothing to the soul. So even though thought is more spiritual, it's nothing to the soul. So the same thing, that's the analogy. Oh, I understand the world is nothing to God, but the Atzilus, the spiritual, no, it's also nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing. And this intellectual, rational soul that causes the emergent emotions, this in turn leads to thought and speech. Thus, in comparison to the essence of the soul itself, which transcends even the intellect by far, one letter of speech, even thought, is absolutely no consequence. It's pushed nothing. It's nothing. What is speech to a human being? It's nothing. However, the bottom analogy, but even that you should realize that this is only an analogy, because you can't even imagine by the Eibishter this concept. If you can imagine it by yourself, to the Eibishter, it's not only an analogy, because you can't even say it on God. The world is nothing to him. It's an embarrassment to say that on God. This is metaphorical speaking to appease the ear. I'm giving you an analogy, but not comparison my thought and speech of a human being to God's infinity. It's just an analogy, and because it's self-understood that, yeah, your speech is something. Well, one word, the Torah says every word you say, you should be careful, because speech is something. So it's an analogy, because to the Eibishter, it's an embarrassing thing to even say that. So in order to give a finite mortal some inkling of insignificance of creation in the eyes of the Creator, the fact it's written, there's no comparison unto you. I can't compare myself to you. None of anything I compare a human being to God. And chas v'sholem, and that's what happens. We start comparing human beings to God, then we start making human beings God. And you can't compare the situation. It's only an analogy, a mashal. Don't get lost in the mashal. The mashal is only an analogy. So unlike the single letter of thought or speech that bears some degree of comparison to the soul, does, because the soul is a created thing, and the speech is also created. So there is some, there's some, like the Gemara says, I can count. There's a Tanu who said, I can count every drop I can count every drop of the ocean. I can give you the number of how many drops in the ocean. So, well, what's one drop to the entire ocean? But ultimately, the ocean is made up of drops. So I give you the number, even though the number is going to be a Meshuggah number, but it's a number. Whatever, there's a number. Every $1 billion, trillion, whatever number it is, it starts with one. So even though what's one to trillions of dollars, but still, there is something, because every number starts with the number one. Because the most biggest number in the trillions of dollars, you're gonna still have it's still a finite concept. It's not an infinite amount. So it's an analogy, and therefore to the Eibishter, it's Pashat, not the number. It's infinite. So it's not that the Eibishter is greater. He's an infinite number. The Eibishter is infinite. There's no number. And therefore, unlike there's no comparison. So it's an analogy that the ear should listen, and that I can learn for myself to comprehend a little bit of what means finite to infinite. As I explained in Tanya, in the beginning of Tanya, chapter 2, Chelik 2, Perek Tes, Ein Sham. This underlies what we say in our prayers: the king who is exalted Levade, he's alone. Mayaz, from a from a fourth time. Pirush Kamesha Ma'az. This means that just like before time, Kaidim Habriya, before there was time, before there was time, space, matter, there was nothing. It's God. Hayulavadiyu, the Abish was unique. And self. He was by himself, so to say. Kach atahu meremim, so too the Abish is exalted at the present time when there's a world. The Abish is exalted, Masnasim Meselim. He's beyond the days of the world. Pirashuram v'nisam la'mayla. Mayla. He's above and beyond, exalted from the time, from the Bechinas Zman, from the aspect of time. Hanikah b'shem Meselim, which is called the days of the world. And lefisha chayish akala elam kala yemeis elam, because the life force of all the days of the world, urak bechinas hamelach, is only from the first of the melech. That's the pasuk. Hamelech hameremim levad. Hamelech, the king, malchus, hamelech, because everything comes only from the melech. It only comes from the attribute of kingship. Sfiras malchus. Access past, present, and future. That there's a concept of the world. The elements of time relates only to the Sfiras HaMalchus. It's only the way it's relationship to Malchus, that there's time and space. By Ibish, there's no time, space, or there is time and space, no time and space. No, it's concept by God. Concerning this level, we may differentiate between the phrase, he reigns, he reigns, he reigned, he reigns, and he shall reign. Hashem Melech, Hashem Molech, Hashem Yimlech. That's the expression. God reigned, God reigns, and God will reign. Past, present, future. But God is not past, present, future. Past, present, future is a creation of time. That's Hashem Melech. That's the way the Eibishter reigns in the past, present, and future. Through Sfiras HaMalchus, there's a concept, the way the world comes through Sfiras HaMalchus, the attribute of kingship. You have the past, present, and future. But Hashem, the Eibush is no past, present, future. Hashem, Yud Kei Vavke, the past, present, future is the same time. Same situation. He shall reign. However, the Sfira and the attribute that above Malchus just send the element of time. As explained elsewhere. So since God is also transcends creation, which is absolutely no consequence in relation to his essence, it follows. Then, if you understand this, and you're a chelik elaka mimal mamish, I am a chelik elaka mimal mamish. I am a nitzitz. I'm a part of the essence of Kadosh Baruch Hu. There's no past, present, and future. And I'm stuck in this reality. The Eibusha puts this neshama in this reality. It should awaken upon my soul. It's great empathy, great rachmanis. Follows the extremely great cause to feel compassionate for the spark, which is a part of God above, that dwells in the dark, gloomy body, the hide of the snake. The body is liable to contact, impurity, and to indulge in prohibited things that derive from three utterly impure clippers, to become defiled by the various lusts, may the merciful spare us, involving things which, though permitted, derive from clippers nega. Lule HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mogen Aleinu. If it's not for God serving the man as a shield, and to give him strength and might to wage war with the body and its passion, and to trumpet over it, if not the Eibishter gave me the koyach, I would be lost. So even when the body does not actually lust after physical pleasure, the very fact that it's so inclined points it to a lowly state, and within such a body, that divine spark is obligated to spend its days. Zeh she'omer Hashem Adonu Zeinu Magin Yeshenu. And this is the meaning of the prayer, Master of our strength, Shield of our salvation. So after exalting God as King, who is exalted alone and above everything, and beseeching Him and His abundant of mercy to have compassion upon us, we continue with the above quoted phrase, which these words we affirm that God provides us with an encompassing light and power far transcending man's own power. Can't do it without you. That enables us to trumpet over the body and its passions. So by having a rachmanis on my soul, realizing that my soul is here to give light to the body, and I need to have God's help, that God helps me overcome the powers of this world, and God gives me those powers to overcome it. That is awakening rachmanis on who I am. Alter Rebbe is going to continue. It's a beautiful concept, self-understood. It's a deep concept we just learned, a beautiful aspect. And the Alter Rebbe is going to continue this concept, how to wake it up, the rachmanis, and how it's connected to tzedakah. Today is the 19th day of the month. With Tillim, it's chapter 90 to chapter 96. If you do those 7 chapters, you do the chitas of the day. Yom of the day is interesting. Yom concerning those who put on 4 pairs of tefillin. It's an interesting concept. Maybe you've never heard of this, but there are 4 pairs of tefillin. Or you should know, all connected to Rashi, who is we call the first pair of tefillin Rashi's tefillin. And then there's Rabbeinu Tam, and Shmusha Rabba and Ravid, which all his grandchildren, which many Jews put on Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Like I put on every day Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam was a grandson of Rashi. And he changed the order of the portions in the tefillin. That's really their argument. So there's 4 pairs, there's 4 portions in every tefillin. Actually, the same portions that are in the hand tefillin are in the head tefillin. The only difference is that in the hand tefillin they're 1 row, and the head tefillin they're divided into separate boxes. As you see, you look at the head tefillin, you'll see 4 boxes. So it's 4 boxes within 1 box, but they're actually 4 distinct boxes. It's a very hard process. It's all handmade, and the 4 boxes that are brought into 1 box. And they're made out of 1 piece of leather, if you ever saw the making of tefillin. So you take if you ever open up a hand tefillin, you see 1 big roll. If you open up the head tefillin, you see 4 different compartments. And it's divided into 4. The question is, what is the order of these 4 compartments? And Rashi had a certain. Everybody accepted Rashi. That's why they gave the name Rashi's tefillin. They put on tefillin before Rashi, but Rashi in essence revealed this, and he wrote it, and therefore we gave him the honor. We call Rashi, and everybody puts on Rashi's tefillin for davening. Then there's Rabbeinu Tam. There's a story that Rabbeinu Tam, as a young child, was sitting on Rashi's lap, his grandfather's lap, and he got up on his lap and he grabbed the Rashi used to wear tefillin the whole day. And he grabbed his head tefillin. He grabbed the tefillin on his head. And Rashi said that this grandson is going to one day change my tefillin. He's going to one day say my tefillin is not right. And he did. Rabbeinu Tam. So we put on Rabbeinu Tam also. Many Jews put on Rabbeinu Tam also. And what we do is, after davening, we say the Shema. We say the Shema and we say Kaddish. And another part of the Torah, which is actually in tefillin, but we do that without a bracha. We don't make a bracha on the Rabbeinu Tam. We make a bracha on the Rashi's tefillin. But there's another 2 pairs of tefillin, which Shmush Rabbah and Ravid. It's another 2 pairs of tefillin because there's other ways of dividing it. But it's only, as you'll soon see, it's only the head tefillin. So this is the way it's done. the Rebbe tells you how to put on 4 pairs of tefillin. Those who daven with 4 pairs of tefillin, the procedure is followed. You put on your head, Rashi, hand and head. So there's Rashi, you put on Rashi. You can't make a bracha on your tefillin, only on Rashi's tefillin. So that's the bracha we make on tefillin, is Rashi. And we daven. We say our davening in Rashi's tefillin, which is called Rashi. Whatever, that's the name that was given to it, Rashi's tefillin. And daven until after Ach Tzadikim. You remove the Rashi's tefillin from the head. You take off the head tefillin of Rashi, and without a bracha, you put the Shmush Rabbah tefillin on the head. That's what you do. You take the Shmush Rabbah. The Shmush Rabbah only has one thing, and that's the head pair. So you're gonna put this head pair tefillin on, and you recite the Shema until Emes. Then you recite the daily portion of Tehillim. You say Tehillim with the Shmush Rabbah. As Tehillim is divided into days of the month, which we just announced, the meticulous would be those meticulous would study some chapters with the commentary of Rashi and Metzudas, the Tehillim. Then you take off that the pair. You take off the hand Rashi and the head Shmush Rabbah. Then you put on Rabbeinu Tam. You put on Rabbeinu Tam is a whole set, the hand and the head. So you put it on Rabbeinu Tam. You recite the Shema again, and the Pasha Kaddish, which we do, and also Sheish Zechiris, the 6th remembrance of the day, which is in your Siddur at page 86. Then study a chapter of Mishnah, each according to his comprehension. Then you take off Rabbeinu Tam, the head part of the Rabbeinu Tam, and you put on the Ravid. Ravid also was a grandson of Rashi, great-grandson of Rashi. And you put the tefillin on the head without a bracha. The only bracha you make a bracha is on Rashi. You recite the Shema again until Emes. Study a portion of Chumash with the commentary of Rashi, like on Sunday till Sheni and Monday, etc. And then you take off both. You take off your head and your hand tefillin, and that's how we know that Rebbe put on 4 pairs of tefillin. And I've seen other people do that. It's not a usual thing to put on 4 pairs of tefillin, but it's not really. It's really 2 and 2 halves. So it's 2 complete sets, as we have Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. We have 2 complete sets of tefillin. Many of us have 2 complete sets of tefillin. The Rebbe asked. We used to be customary. Some people would put on Rabbeinu Tams after they got married. Some people would put on Rabbeinu Tams, later on, not after they get married, but after, they were 17 to 25, they would put on Rabbeinu Tams. The Lubavitch Rebbe would actually, right before my bar mitzvah, it was an Adar. I was bar mitzvah Adar. I'm talking about 1976. I was bar mitzvah like a month before my bar mitzvah. The Lubavitch Rebbe said every bar mitzvah boy should put on Rabbeinu Tam, and that's when that started. And that's where I started. So I started from my bar mitzvah already putting on Rabbeinu Tam. And the Rebbe asked every bar mitzvah boy to put on Rabbeinu Tam. And since then, in Lubavitch, I know every bar mitzvah boy, when he gets bar mitzvah, he gets 2 pairs of tefillin, Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. And that's started that custom that every bar mitzvah boy would put on Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam every single day. And but there are those who added another 2 pairs of tefillin, which isn't to hate. You can do that. Have a wonderful and beautiful day. And Mitchell, we'll see you tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll continue to learn the chitas of the day. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.